Thank you, everyone. So before we start, how many project managers here? Can you please do a show of hands? Okay, many of you. And then how many lazy project managers? All of those who have raised your hands, you are not lazy enough. All right. So my name is Anand, and I'm the CEO and product owner of this company with very weird name, ain't it? Right? So any one of you who knows how to pronounce it correctly, visit me at the booth, and you can expect a gift from India if you pronounce it correctly. All right. Moving on to the important stuff, we'll be talking about making IT project management easy with automated release notes and reports. First of all, of course, let's look at the 4 major challenges that exist in the arena of project management, right? Firstly, you've got the scope creep, then you've got the resource allocation, transparency and communications, and risk management. The first 2, scope creep and resource allocation, I'm sure you've remembered the classical triangle, cost, scope, time. These 2 belong to that. Then you've got transparency and communication. We'll be zooming in on this one, transparency and communications. And the risk management is, ongoing identification of risk and mitigation. Zooming in, transparency and communications. It's the idea of transparency and communications in any project management is essentially ensuring that your entire team is on the same page. Everybody is rowing in the same direction, right? That's all you're trying to do. And we have already solved this problem, right? How do we solve it? We have status updates. Just in the last presentation, I saw one bullet point that mentioned daily and weekly reviews, right? So we have solved it through status updates, periodic status updates. Depending on the type of project that you're working in, the frequency might change, but the status updates are there. Then you've got different meetings. You've got different planning meetings, retrospective meetings. You plan your releases, you plan your sprints, you execute them. Throughout these planning and retrospectives, you have communication with your team. And then finally, you've got dashboards, reports, and presentations, right? So I don't have any value to add onto this one. The problem is already solved. But there is a problem in the next step. How many times you have experienced that you've actually sent out daily, weekly, whatever the frequency, status update, but then realized you forgot to add 2 items that your manager wanted to, right? Pretty much happens all the time. We continue to rely on doing these things manually and making them difficult in the long run. So where is it that we are going to add value? The value will be added by making this information more accurate, consistent, and less time consuming. All the 3 things at the same time. And how do we do it? Of course, automation. If you do not have automation, you're going to have these experiences where you're having a long day. At the end of the day, when you're driving back to the home, you realize you forgot to add just 1 point to the detailed report, that the detailed presentation that you had created for your manager, right? So what all can we automate out of this, right? If I were to go back, I'll just go back for a second. We can automate a bunch of things out of these. Of course, dashboards cannot be automated. You create them inside of your Jira, Confluence, whatever. But the problem with dashboard is access. You have to access them inside of your application. You have to open Jira, you have to open Confluence, and then the dashboard is visible. The rest of the stuff, all of it can be automated. So let's see what I'm talking about. Every periodic status update, you can automate it. Daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is. Then you've got sprint completion reports. Then you've got release notes that you send out to various stakeholders beyond, post after the release is live. Then you've got a bug priority report. All these names, pre-release report, backlog trends report, support project report. Not all of these reports are going to be applicable to your projects. Some of them are going to be. However, there are also going to be few reports that are not listed here. The only reason these 6 names are added here is just based on my memory. That's it. There are a bunch of various reports. I can never imagine the number of reports any large project team generates. Everyone has its own flavor of these reporting standards. For example, one quite an interesting report that I came across, one of our customers used to generate it. It's called Backlog Trends Report. They are a product-focused company. What they do is they keep an eye on their product backlog. They want to ensure the number of bugs in their product backlog, of course, inside of Jira, are not growing over a period of time, right? So they keep an eye on the product backlog. Then there is this bug priority report. Very common. QA managers in any given software development team, they want to keep an eye on any critical and blocker bugs that were introduced in the past X number of days, X number of weeks. Pretty straightforward. Pre-release report. This is actually a ritual that we have implemented in our own processes as well. What we do is, just a couple of days before the actual release goes live, we use our own product to automatically generate the pre-release report. It is published in Confluence. We discuss everything within the context of that Confluence page. We note down the meeting stuff, everything, any inputs that are added by the product team that go onto that Confluence page. And then, based on the approvals, it goes live. I'll talk about this in a bit more detail again. So all of these reports, sprint completion report, just on the booth, I think a few minutes ago, somebody was asking, can we create sprint completion reports? Definitely you can. So there are a number of variations as far as these reports are concerned. But the question is, how do you create them? Well, if you're well-versed with the Atlassian ecosystem, the first and foremost answer that should come to your mind is automation for Jira, right? You can almost develop all these types of reports using automation for Jira. Unfortunately, it's not tailor-built to generate that kind of content. You can definitely do it, but for maintaining it, it'll be a pain. You'll have to maintain multiple templates. Then again, the number of formats are going to be limited. You're going to have only email notifications or Slack at the most. What if you wanted to cater to audiences that are more receptible on few different channels? That's where automated release notes and reports for Jira comes into the picture. I'll quickly talk about the abstraction layer, how this works, how this app works. It lets you create templates in various formats using a tweaked version of JQL, right? Let's take a step back. Imagine you want to generate reports from Jira. Typically, what you're going to require, first, you would want to identify the issues that should be included in your final report. You call them issues, tickets, tasks, whatever, but you would need to identify them. How do you identify them? Of course, you use something like a JQL, Jira query language. A JQL search result, that's how you identify what Jira issues I want to include in my final document. Second, of course, I'm sure you have seen Jira instances with thousands of custom fields. Do you want to include all of the information from those custom fields into your reports? Definitely not. So you would want to define which custom fields or default fields from those selected Jira issues do you want to be included in the report document or the release notes. That's the second layer. And third, and probably the most important element, how do you want it to be presented? That's where the layout part comes into the picture. Because I'm sure you know about Jira subscription filter, Jira filter subscriptions. You can create filters in Jira and subscribe to them. They will deliver the relevant information. But of course, it's not aesthetic. It's not readable in the sense that you can distribute it to your team members, right? So that's where designing that entire piece comes into the picture. So within the app, you will be able to define various templates that are essentially based on these three structures, these three elements. JQL to define what issues you want to bring in, a tweaked version of JQL, then definition of fields, what fields do you want to include, and then finally, the layout, the design. This is the template part. That is the automation part. Because you're trying to automate, you don't want to even click a button to generate these periodic reports. You want to generate them based on various triggers, such as, I'm sure if any of you are using versions inside of Jira, versions or releases, I don't know why they use two different terms for the same thing. But as soon as you mark a version as released inside of your Jira project, bang, you've got the trigger. Based on the template that you've configured, you will get the relevant release notes or report, whatever you want to call it, in your inbox or based on whatever channels you have configured. Sprint started or sprint completed, done. Anyway, you're going to mark a sprint as completed inside of your Jira project. That automatically ends up generating the relevant reports for you. Scheduled intervals, webhooks. So there is no limitation in terms of what kind of automation can be done through templates and triggers. Next, I actually want to focus on the use cases. This is probably the most important part because it will address a bunch of questions that I heard outside. What all different things you can do with this setup? This one I've already spoken about a couple of times. You can distribute release notes when a version is marked as released in Jira. The distribution can be across multiple channels. There is a slide for those channels. We'll come to it. Now, this is Confluence integration that we have is probably the most loved integration. Another use case, create a Confluence page for pre-release meeting 3 days before every release. So you can have this rule set up right inside of Automated Release Notes and Reports app, where you can tell it to generate this Confluence page 3 days before upcoming release that is configured in the given Jira project. So automatically, it will look at the upcoming version's release date and create that Confluence page for you. You don't have to do anything manually. Just go in, analyze how the stuff is progressing. Does anything need to change? Done. Publish a sprint report in Confluence for retrospective discussion. Again, many of you might be creating a Confluence page, putting up a filter to bring up issues from a given sprint. You don't have to do any of it. As soon as a sprint is marked as completed, it will automatically create the relevant page inside of Confluence. You just go in, hold the retrospective with your team, figure out what you have done right, what you have done wrong, what needs to change. On the right side, things are going to get a little more interesting. The last one is probably the best one. You can even generate reports in PDF, Microsoft Word formats as well. You can share them on Slack, embed them on Confluence, attach them to email. Possibilities are endless. Of course, you can design these PDF templates and Microsoft Word templates based on your branding needs, because that's where the essence lies. We also have this very interesting use case where whatever new features, so this is kind of what we call as release notes widgets. I'm sure you have seen those what's new widgets in different apps. Even Jira has that what's new thing if you click on that question mark icon, right? You can embed something like that right inside of your web or mobile applications. The release notes will be automatically populated from your ARN configuration, automated release notes configurations. The last one. This was a very recently released feature. Now you are actually able to generate ready-to-use presentations and get them directly into your inbox, fetching all the information from Jira that you've configured, right? So daily status reports, weekly status reports, whatever you can think of. If you have ever created a presentation that can be repeated, you can configure it. Of course, there will be an initial setup where the system will request you to upload a template, design it in such a way that certain JQL elements and those elements are brought in. Once that is done, you will be able to get those presentations on an ongoing basis. You can even distribute that across your entire team. You can send it via Microsoft Teams automatically. Again, none of this needs to happen manually. It's completely up to you. That's just some of the use cases that I'm referring to. There are a bunch of other use cases. Of course, we don't have the time to talk about them. The app, and trust me, this slide probably can be added to any of the earlier sessions powered by AI. You can't do anything about that nowadays. But yes, the app is powered by AI through OpenAI integration. It can write the release notes on its own. It can write the reports on its own. And soon the entire automation will happen through the interface that is conversational. However, the last slide, I find it the most interesting one. These are just some of the various channels and formats that are currently supported. You can create email reports. You can send the reports directly to Slack. You can create PDF repositories. The Confluence integration is so powerful that you can actually update the existing pages. You can prepend to an existing page. You can append to an existing page. So for example, if you want to have a page that is, live running release notes, kind of every release note that has been there right since your first launch, you can create even something like that. Then presentations, like I said, we've recently launched presentations, release pages your users can subscribe to. And finally, we are in the works for having the videos. You will actually be able to generate your reports in the form of videos, get them distributed automatically, and of course, impress your boss, impress your manager, and impress your colleagues. All right, any questions? And before I forget, if you want to play around, there is a free version of the app, only on cloud. For data center, there is no free version. Sorry about that. And mind you, the app, as of now, is named Automated Release Notes only. Soon, we are going to rename it towards the end of this quarter to Automated Release Notes and Reports, because our customers have ended up creating more reports than release notes. Initially, we created it only for release notes. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have any questions here in the audience? Okay, so I have one question.
Sure.
So this app seems to be one of these apps that you must know what kind of data you have. Your data must be structured to use it perfectly. Do you have any recommendations if I think my data is messed up right now? Where to start? What to do?
So can you specify what data?
Whatever you want to use in your app. I don't know, custom fields, whatever. You're using it differently in different projects, so it's maybe difficult to combine them.
Mm-hmm. So you can create as many templates as you need. See, the app, all it does is it is collecting the data and putting it in a certain format. The app is not probably going to solve a problem where your Jira setup is messed up.
Yeah, of course.
You will have to create different templates, but then that will mess up the app setup.
Okay, anyone else? Any questions?
Sure.
A question about the reports. So you talked about pre-release reports that you do like 3 days prior. Are those reports saved in static way, or is it dynamic, considering it pulls in the information from jQuery?
So it depends on the format. For example, if you ended up using Confluence format, Confluence can have static as well as dynamic data. If you embed the macro using the app, it will pull up the information dynamically. But say if you create a PDF report, of course it will be static because the data is pulled when the report was generated.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So I know you guys are tired already, but I hope you agree with me that it's been an incredible day with learning and inspiration. Woohoo!